Roadside screening devices for drug-impaired driving are being put to the test starting today by Toronto Police before marijuana is legalized likely next year. 2 devices will be used for the pilot project that will run through spring of next year. Information will be collected on how the swab technology works with different motorists and under different weather conditions. And with more on this pilot project, we're now joined live by Constable Clint Stibbe with Toronto Police. Good morning, Constable Stibbe.
Good morning.
Okay, what can drivers expect if they are pulled over and this device is being used on them?
So basically, the officers that are out on the roads, so we have 5 officers, so it will be a 24/7 period where this device will be available to officers to use at the roadside. But the officers will make an assessment of the individual and determine that there's absolutely no impairment of that individual, or jeopardy, if you will, where that person could be facing charges under some sort of alcohol or drug impairment. Once that determination's been made that there is no apparent signs of impairment, they can then ask that individual if they'd like to take part in this pilot project. So that could be something from stopping an individual from speeding, a check for documents, a ride patrol, anything where an officer will come in contact with these individuals. They can then offer that individual the opportunity to be part of this pilot. The goal obviously is to see how these devices work in our weather conditions and in use in the Toronto Police Service. But we have to keep in mind that the officers are making the assessment prior to that person giving the test, which is to make sure that that person's not impaired. If there's any chance that person may be impaired, then the existing legislation for the impaired by drug or alcohol will kick in, and those officers will then proceed forward in that fashion.
Okay, and if you do in fact stop someone who doesn't seem to be impaired by drugs, but after the test it comes back positive, what happens then?
So that just indicates that there is a presence of some level of drug, but the officers would have already ruled out any sort of impairment, so there's no jeopardy to the individual. So that even could be something that that person may have consumed sometime earlier, and I can't give you a time range because drugs have different periods of time that they remain in your body and at different levels. So we need to keep in mind that going forward we have to make sure that we follow all the rules and that we rule out any jeopardy that a driver may face prior to using this device.
And because it's a pilot project, the legalities around it at this point, no one would be charged if they were found to have drugs in their system.
Absolutely nobody will be charged. It will be completely anonymous. There will be no personal data collected. So anybody giving themselves towards this test are not going to be placed in any jeopardy as a result of finding any sort of trace on board that person's body.
Okay, and what's the main challenge in testing for drug-impaired driving? Because we've been talking about it a lot ahead of the marijuana legalization, and we know it's tough for officers to try to track that down.
Well, some of the challenges that we face are obviously the type of drug that the person may have on board. We know that the government is moving towards legalizing marijuana, but we need to keep in mind that impaired by drug follows a number of different types of drugs. That would include the opioids, the methamphetamines, any number of really different drugs that are currently available to the public. Because we need to keep in mind that the illegal drugs aren't the only ones that you can be impaired by. You can be impaired by legal drugs as well. So this device will test a number of different categories of drug, and based on that, the government will be able to determine how well this device functions and what would be suitable for use with the police services.
Okay, thank you so much, Constable Stibbe, for joining us this morning.